Have you ever downloaded a new app or, visited a website and it just clicked? It felt intuitive, almost effortless, like it was reading your mind somehow. We've all had that moment, right?
No, absolutely.
What exactly is the magic behind that seamless feeling?
Well, it's funny you say magic, but it's really not magic at all. It's actually deeply rooted in how our brains are wired. How we perceive the world, how we process information, and ultimately how we make decisions.
That's fascinating because it feels so natural you barely even notice it's happening.
Hmm.
Today we're doing a deep dive into that incredible intersection where human psychology meets design. We're going to explore how understanding our brains, everything from attention and memory to perception and decision-making, how that understanding helps create digital experiences that truly work.
Yeah, and we've gathered some really powerful insights here. We're drawing from cognitive psychology, leading design guides, even a groundbreaking Stanford thesis to sort of unravel this whole thing.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack the core psychological principles behind great interface and interaction design. We want to help you understand why some designs feel so effortless, even if you don't have a background in, say, human-computer interaction or psychology.
Yeah, the goal is that by the end of this deep dive, you'll start to see those invisible forces guiding your digital interactions. You'll get why things feel right.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we look at a screen, our brains aren't just seeing a jumble of individual pixels or isolated shapes, right?
Not at all.
They're constantly and incredibly fast, trying to make sense of everything, finding patterns, finding meaning. How does something like the Gestalt principles explain that initial, almost instantaneous understanding we get?
That's a great question because Gestalt psychology, which is actually over a century old now, it fundamentally shifted how we understand perception.
Right.
It moved us beyond just seeing isolated sensory inputs. Instead, it emphasized that our minds instinctively organize visual information into patterns and unified wholes. It's that famous idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
And this isn't just some philosophical idea, it's a deep-seated cognitive shortcut. And designers absolutely leverage these shortcuts to make interfaces instantly comprehensible.
So our brains are hardwired, essentially, to look for order, for relationships between things.
Pretty much, yeah.
Let's dig into some of the key Gestalt principles now, the ones crucial for interface design. First up, figure ground. What's that about?
Figure ground is fundamental. It's all about how our eyes and our brain distinguish the main subject, that's the figure, from the ground or the background.
Okay.
Designers skillfully use positive and negative space to guide your focus. Think about the classic Rubens vase illusion.
Yes, the faces in the vase.
Exactly. You perceive either two faces or a vase, depending on what your brain chooses to highlight as the figure. For designers, it means making sure critical elements like buttons or important text don't get lost in the visual noise of the background.
And in the real world of design, you see this with the FedEx logo, right? That negative space between the E and the X subtly forms an arrow.
Brilliant example.
It reinforces their whole message about speed and direction without needing extra graphics. So for you as a user, this means those important elements, like maybe a call to action button, they need to stand out clearly from their background. Like on Naya's website, how they place brand details against those inviting scenes, it ensures they're noticed, not just, camouflaged.
Precisely. Next, we have proximity. This one sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Which is?
We naturally group objects together that are close to each other in space.
Right, you see this everywhere and probably take it for granted. Like navigation menus where related links are clustered together. IKEA's website does this.
Yeah, or how icons are usually grouped right next to their text label, like a magnifying glass icon beside a search bar. You instantly know they belong together.
And in UX design, this principle is often used to group elements without needing, like heavy borders or boxes.
Yeah.
Think about Google Workspace's app icons.
Good one.
They're just clustered by function. It makes the interface feel cleaner, less cluttered, but still clearly organized.
Then there's similarity. Our brains also group elements that look alike. Maybe they share the same color or shape or font.
Okay.
This helps us quickly spot patterns and understand relationships without even consciously thinking about it.
Zoom's homepage is a good illustration. All the main action buttons like sign up or view pricing, they're consistently blue.
Right.
While the informational links, maybe support or about us, are gray. It subtly signals their different functions. Blue means do something, gray means learn something.
Exactly. Or think about Etsy's product tiles. They're usually identical in size and spacing.
Yeah, very uniform.
Which makes a potentially busy page feel intuitive because you can quickly scan and spot the patterns, helping you find what you're looking for more easily.
Makes sense. What's next?
Moving on to continuity. Our eyes naturally follow smooth, continuous lines or paths. We prefer uninterrupted flow over abrupt changes or breaks.
Ah, like the Pinterest feed.
Yeah.
That makes sense now. The pins are arranged in that flowing vertical grid. It just naturally guides your eye down the page, right? You don't have to actively hunt for the next bit of content.
Spot on. Or think about a progress bar in a multi-step form. It smoothly leads your eye through the steps, subtly telling you where you are and what's next. It helps maintain that flow, keeps you engaged, and reduces the mental effort of figuring out the sequence. Less friction.
Okay, so grouping, similarity, continuity. What about making something really stand out?
That brings us to focal points. So we've seen how our brains group things automatically. But what if a designer really needs you to notice one specific thing? Maybe click a certain button?
Yeah, the important stuff.
That's where focal points are key. Elements with strong contrast, or maybe something unique in shape or color, they instinctively grab our attention.
Like that bright orange Start Free button you often see on websites, maybe like HubSpot's home screen. It really pops against the, say, white navigation buttons nearby.
Exactly. It's designed to draw your eye directly to that desired action. It's almost impossible not to see it first.
But you can overdo it,
Yeah.
right? Too many focal points, and it just becomes visual noise.
Oh, absolutely. It's a balancing act. The designer's skill is knowing when and how to apply contrast effectively without creating chaos.
Right. And finally,
There's past experience. This is a big one. We interpret visuals based on our prior knowledge, learned patterns, and even our cultural backgrounds. It connects new designs to everything you've seen and interacted with before.
the classic example is the shopping cart icon on e-commerce sites. It's universally understood now, but that convention had to be established. It wasn't always obvious. What happens when a new technology doesn't have an immediate real-world counterpart? Like, how do designers build those new mental models from scratch?
That's a crucial point. Think about early touchscreens. How did we learn to pinch to zoom?
Yeah.
That gesture had no direct physical world equivalent for zooming on a piece of paper. But it was introduced, learned, and now it's a standard convention. It became a new past experience that designers rely on.
So innovation often involves creating new conventions that eventually become familiar.
Exactly. But it highlights the power of shared past experiences for intuitive design. Consider the save icon, often still a floppy disk.
Yeah.
For younger users who've never seen a floppy disk, that symbol might be completely meaningless. It shows how these conventions rely on a shared cultural or generational context. If you haven't had that experience, the symbol fails.
Okay, so we've talked about how our brains perceive and group visual information using these Gestalt principles. That's sort of the seeing part. But what about what we expect to happen when we actually interact with a design? How do our past interactions guide our future ones?
This is where it gets really interesting, as you said. It raises that question. Why do some new designs feel instantly familiar while others just leave us totally lost and confused?
Right.
This often comes down to Jacob's Law. It's a principle articulated by usability expert Jacob Nielsen, and it basically states that users prefer your site to work the same way as all the other sites they already know.
Because they spend most of their time on other sites.
Exactly. They bring their expectations, formed from countless past experiences, to every new digital interaction. And smart designers consciously leverage that existing knowledge.
So, if I'm getting this right,
Yeah.
these expectations form our mental models, what we think we know about how a system works based on past experiences.
Precisely.
And we instinctively apply these models to new but similar situations we encounter.
You got it. Think about digital form elements. Toggles, radio buttons, push buttons. Why do they look and behave the way they do?
Because they mimic physical controls.
Exactly. They originated from our physical world's control panels, light switches, buttons on a stereo, dials. That creates a familiar mental model. We instinctively know or quickly learn how to interact with them because we have a real-world reference point.
Or consider social media platforms,
Well.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They pretty consistently use feed-based layouts, right? Scroll down, see posts.
Standard pattern.
So users are accustomed to that flow. It makes new platforms adopting a similar structure incredibly easy to navigate. You don't have to relearn the core interaction. It's like Walking into a friend's house and finding the light switch is near the door. You just expect it.
And problems really arise when your existing mental model doesn't align with the design. That's what we call mental model discordance.
Ah, okay.
Remember Snapchat's major redesign back in 2018?
Vaguely, yeah. It caused a stir.
A huge stir. It changed familiar features so drastically, moving things around, combining things. It completely broke users' existing mental models. People were confused, frustrated.
And they left, right? Lots went to Instagram.
Many did. It felt like, walking into your own kitchen one morning and finding all the drawers and cupboards had been swapped overnight. Even simple tasks become incredibly frustrating when your expectations are violated like that.
That makes perfect sense. So, in contrast, think about how Google often handles redesigns. Like with YouTube, they sometimes let users opt in to the new version for a while.
Right, a gradual rollout.
That gradual introduction, plus the option to revert back temporarily, helps users ease into the new design. It avoids that jarring discordance. It respects your existing mental models and empowers you to switch when you feel ready.
It's a much smarter, more user-centric way to introduce change, reducing frustration and abandonment.
Okay, so we've explored perception, how we see things, and expectations, how our past shapes what we anticipate. But there's another piece, isn't there? It's not just about what we see or expect. It's also about how much our brains can actually handle at any one time. We have limits.
Absolutely. Our minds have processing limits, just like a computer's CPU. Good design actively helps manage our cognitive load.
Cognitive load.
Yeah.
That's the mental effort required, right?
Exactly. It's the total mental processing power being used by your working memory when you're performing a task. If too much information comes in at once, or a task is overly complex, your performance suffers.
You get frustrated and make mistakes.
Or you might just give up entirely. Abandon the task, close the app.
Which brings us neatly to Hick's law. What does that tell us?
Hick's law predicts that the time it takes you to make a decision increases logarithmically with the number and complexity of choices available.
So basically, more choices equals longer thinking time.
Pretty much. More choices mean longer processing time and therefore higher cognitive load.
Think about those old TV remotes. They were insane. A maze of like 50 tiny buttons.
Yeah, nightmare.
And then you saw those grandparent-friendly remotes come out. They simplified things massively, often hiding non-essential buttons under a flap or just removing them.
They drastically reduce the cognitive load by limiting the choices. Smart TV remotes often do something similar, but they transfer the complexity off the physical remote and onto the screen interface itself. They organize the choices within menus, rather than making you hunt for a specific tiny physical button. It's about minimizing decision points, especially at critical moments.
That's a great example. And another one is Slack's onboarding process. Instead of just dumping all its features on you at once, which would be overwhelming, they use Slackbot to progressively introduce things.
Right, step by step.
You learn to send a message first. Simple. Then maybe later it introduces channels, then threads, then integrations, revealing features as you become more comfortable. It prevents that feeling of being totally overwhelmed.
It mimics how we naturally learn, building complexity gradually and keeping that cognitive load manageable.
Okay, so Hick's law is about the number of choices. What about how much information we can hold in our head at once?
That leads us to Miller's law, or perhaps more accurately, Miller's observation. George Miller, back in the 50s, published a famous paper suggesting that the average person can only keep about 7 plus or minus 2 items in their working memory at any given time.
The magical number 7, plus or minus 2.
Right. Now, it's not a rigid scientific law in the way Hick's law is viewed, and the exact number is debated, but the core idea is incredibly important for design. Our short-term memory capacity is limited, and this highlights the vital importance of chunking information.
Chunking, that's breaking things down, right?
Exactly. Visually grouping related information into smaller, distinct units or chunks to make them easier to process and remember.
The classic example is a phone number. It's always formatted like 555-123-4567, not just 551-234-567 as one long string. Those dashes create chunks.
And those chunks make it significantly easier to read, recite, and remember the number. You process 3 digits, then 3, then 4. Much easier than 10 all at once.
So designers apply this constantly, organizing content into scannable modules or sections. Think about news websites like maybe Bloomberg. They have complex financial information, but they group it into distinct, digestible blocks.
Precisely. It makes even very dense layouts visually manageable and much more understandable because the content is broken down into these smaller, meaningful pieces that respect our working memory limits. It's all about making information digestible.
Okay, we've covered shape, structure, expectations, cognitive load. But what about color? It plays such a huge, often subconscious role in how we perceive and interact with interfaces. How does it really work on our brains beyond just looking nice?
That's a great question because if we connect this to the bigger picture, color isn't just decoration. It's a really powerful psychological tool.
Right.
First, and this is kind of mind-bending, it's important to remember that color doesn't actually exist out there in the world.
Wait, what?
It's our brain's interpretation of different wavelengths of electromagnetic energy. It's based on how the rods and cones in our eyes respond. We literally construct the experience of color in our minds.
Wow. Okay. That definitely challenges the everyday perception.
It does. And because it's constructed internally, its psychological impact can be incredibly profound.
So, to understand how designers use it strategically, we probably need a few key terms. Let's see. There's hue, right?
Yep. Hue is basically the color itself, red, blue, green. It's largely synonymous with the wavelength of the light.
Then brightness or value.
That's simply how light or dark the color appears. From bright white to deep black and all the grays in between.
And saturation.
Saturation describes how vivid or pure the color is. Is it a really intense pure red, or is it a dull, muted, almost grayish red? That's saturation.
Okay. And you also hear about shades and tints.
Right. Simple definitions: add black to a hue, you get a shade; add white to a hue, you get a tint. These subtle manipulations allow designers to really fine-tune the emotional and cognitive impact of a color palette. They can create excitement, calm, urgency, trust, all through color choices.
So a well-chosen color palette isn't just aesthetic. It can strategically guide your attention, signal how you're supposed to use a system, boost your comprehension, and, crucially, evoke specific emotions. It is hitting us on an almost primal level.
Absolutely. And when we talk about color and emotion, cognitive psychologists often look at emotions through a few key dimensions. Three important ones are arousal, pleasure, or valence, and control.
Okay, arousal. That's like energy level.
Exactly. Your level of physical and cognitive energy or activation. Hot colors, like red, generally increase arousal. That's why they're often used for things like deadlines, critical error messages, or urgent buy now buttons. High contrast black can also be highly arousing.
And cool colors.
Cool colors like blue or green tend to be less arousing. They often promote calm, reflection, maybe focus.
Makes sense. Then pleasure or valence. That's just good versus bad feeling.
Pretty much how positive or negative an emotion feels. Research suggests cool colors often peak in both pleasure and perceived control, fostering positive feelings. Lighter grays and whites are often associated with optimistic feelings, cleanliness, or simplicity. Interestingly, a flat middle gray can sometimes be perceived as depressing or boring, so context really matters.
And the last one, control.
Control relates to how much power, confidence, or competence you feel in a situation. And design can actively influence this. Cool blue, for example, is often a good choice if you want to foster a feeling of empowerment or associate a brand with competence, stability, and security. Think banks, tech companies.
Okay, that's the emotional side. What about just grabbing attention, making you look somewhere specific?
Color is absolutely crucial for controlling where your eye goes first. Designers call this managing salience, how noticeable something is. For instance, blue-green or turquoise is generally quite good at drawing attention, and it often have comforting, positive associations. Hot colors, especially red, are the most powerful for grabbing immediate attention. That's why they're often reserved for truly critical, urgent messages like error alerts, or for pressure motivators like a limited-time sale banner.
This raises an important point we touched on earlier. While red is great for attention, we have to remember accessibility.
Absolutely critical.
Red-green color blindness affects a significant number of people, mostly men, maybe 7 to 10%.
That's right. So if you rely only on red versus green to signal something critical, like success versus failure, a large chunk of your users might miss that vital information entirely.
So designers have to balance that visual impact with inclusivity. They need to use color thoughtfully, but also incorporate other cues like icons or text labels to ensure the design works for everyone. It's not just about making it pop, it's about making it work universally.
Precisely. It's an ethical consideration as much as a design one.
Okay, so we've just uncovered how design intentionally taps into our psychology, how we perceive, how we expect, how we process information, all to make experiences feel seamless and satisfying.
Yeah.
But this power, like any power, it can be wielded in different ways, can't
Yeah.
it? What happens when these very principles we've been celebrating are used, maybe not for our benefit, but perhaps to manipulate us or exploit our attention?
This brings us to a really critical and sometimes uncomfortable discussion about the attention economy.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, many digital platforms are intentionally designed to draw you in and keep you engaged for as long as possible. That's often their business model.
Right. More engagement, more ad revenue, usually.
Exactly. And they apply sophisticated persuasive design techniques, directly leveraging these very psychological insights we've been discussing. Gestalt, mental models, cognitive load, color psychology, sometimes to our detriment.
And there was a Stanford study that actually tried to make this visible, right, with a system called Nudge It.
Yes, the Nudge It project. It was fascinating. They created a Chrome extension that basically acted like an annotation layer on top of Facebook, making its persuasive design techniques visible to the user in real time. It was like pulling back the curtain.
So what kind of things did it show?
Well, for example, they had a quantified FOMO Nudge It. FOMO meaning fear of missing out. This Nudge It would appear right next to those red notification badges with the numbers in them.
Oh, yeah. Those are compelling.
Highly compelling. And the Nudge It would explain how seeing that number makes you feel like you're missing out on something important, creating that psychological urge to click immediately.
Wow. What else?
They had a Don't Leave Nudge It that would pop up when you tried to deactivate your account, highlighting how Facebook intentionally makes the process difficult and uses certain language to discourage you from leaving, adding friction. And another one called Loud Red, which specifically explained how the bright red color of a notification badge biologically draws your attention, leveraging our primitive, ingrained responses to bright, urgent colors. It wasn't just red, it was loud red.
So what happened when people used this? Did it change anything?
The study found something really interesting. Making these techniques visible significantly increased users' awareness of persuasive design. They understood what was happening much better.
Okay. Awareness went up.
And participants actually preferred learning about it this way interactively, in context, rather than just reading an article about persuasive design. As one participant put it, having the nudgets appear on Facebook made the experience more interactive, and it resonated on a more personal level for me.
But did it change their behavior? Did they use Facebook less?
That's the crucial part. The study found that increased awareness didn't always translate into direct behavior change.
Oh.
One participant summed it up quite poignantly. It's hard to change such behaviors. I just feel more guilty about it now.
Oof. Yeah. That highlights a really profound ethical challenge, doesn't it? Why is it so hard to change these ingrained digital habits, even when we become aware of the manipulation?
It's complex. Is it just the sheer convenience, the power of those habit loops the platforms create? Maybe the lack of compelling alternatives that truly prioritize user well-being? Or maybe these platforms just feel indispensable to our social connections or work lives now. It's likely a mix of all those things.
So it really underscores the immense responsibility that designers have. We, or they, hold this incredible power. We can build almost anything, but we constantly have to ask, what should we build? The responsibility has to be creating products that genuinely support and align with users' goals and well-being, products that augment the human experience rather than replacing it, or worse, exploiting our psychological vulnerabilities.
It's a very delicate balance.
Yeah.
And acknowledging how the human mind can be subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, manipulated or exploited, that awareness is the absolute first step toward making truly ethical design decisions. It's about being mindful of how these psychological levers can be pulled, consciously choosing not to pull them in harmful ways, and always trying to prioritize the user's actual best interests and their overall well-being.
Wow, what a journey we've been on today. It's really covered a lot of ground.
It really has.
We've journeyed from the basics of perception, how our brains group visual information with Gestalt principles, then how our expectations shape our interactions through things like Jacob's Law and mental models. We explored managing cognitive load and respecting memory limits with Hick's and Miller's laws. And finally, we dug into the profound, often subconscious impact of color on our emotions and attention.
And you see how all these principles really coalesce, how they work together to create those digital experiences that feel seamless, satisfying, and sometimes, as we just discussed, incredibly sticky.
It truly shows how deeply intertwined our own psychology is with the digital world we navigate every single day.
Yeah.
Good design isn't an accident at all.
Not at all. It's a deliberate, informed application of understanding how we as humans perceive, think, and feel. It really is about designing for humans with all our strengths and limitations.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. The next time an interface feels effortlessly right, or maybe surprisingly addictive or hard to put down, just pause for a second. Consider, how is this design subtly tapping into your psychology? And looking forward, what kind of new designs could truly enhance your life if they were built intentionally, ethically, with these deep human principles truly in mind?